So I'm going to make a video for everyone who's new to sewing to give you the essentials to begin your sewing career, hobby/career. So the first thing I'll talk about is the mat and the ruler. I'm just going to have the ruler there for a second because of the light on there. So this mat's 22 inches by 35 inches. You can see it's very used. I've had this probably for 20 years. They wear very well. And this is a Fiskars mat and a lip edge ruler, and you'll use this constantly. So there's that. Next, there's going to be all kinds of rulers you can use, and they all come in handy. I always have a small ruler around. This is 6 inches. I like this because it's got centimeters and inches as well, and it's smaller. This is just a regular measuring tape I probably got free with something, a ruler, and of course they have all different kinds of rulers you can buy. So if I were starting out, I'd have a regular ruler and a 6-inch ruler. Those would be my two picks, and then I'd add on. There's several kinds of rotary cutters. I have a 45 millimeter, a 60, and another 45. Different kinds of handles with, of course, locks on them. So the 60 I use for cutting several layers at once, and this one is just for cutting a couple of layers, maybe 4. And I have one reserved for paper. So I don't use the fabric cutters on paper. I only use this one on paper because I don't want to ruin the blades on these. Tools for marking on fabric. I love the FriXion pens because they erase with heat. I wish they made one in white. It'd be so convenient. FriXion people, if you're listening, or if anyone's watching that knows anyone from FriXion, please make a white one. Then of course you have chalk, and then pencils. So these also, the pencils erase with moisture, but these just erase with an iron. It's so handy. I can't tell you how happy I was when I discovered these a number of years ago. Instead of using straight pins, these Wonder Clips they're called. Highly recommend. Pretty much can't live without them when you're sewing. Next, I'll talk about seam rippers. There's so many choices. Old-fashioned kind here, which I still hang on to. I've probably had these for 30 years, some of them. This one's a brand new one, kind of ergonomic with a curve on it. And these are nice. I use these a lot when I quilt, just in case I have a whole row that I need to take off, which, I'm not going to say that's ever happened, but it might have happened, a few times. And the slice one is nice. It has replaceable blades. So there's lots and lots to choose from. Just make sure you have a handy seam ripper on hand for those times when you make an error. Next, a few things together. Of course, you're going to need a cute little tomato with your straight pins. You still use straight pins. Sewing gauge. If you're folding something along an edge and you want to make sure it's even all the way across, you'll set your gauge there and just go across the top, and it makes sure everything's even. A Hera tool. This presses lines in, and it also can help you with your corners, poking them out when you turn something right side out. A stiletto or a sewing awl. So when you're pushing something kind of thick through the sewing machine underneath the foot, this is so you don't sew your finger to your project. You just use this to push it through. Now for scissors, I have inexpensive scissors, and I have these in different sizes just for fabric or paper. I do have them sorted for each. Invest in a very good sharp pair of fabric scissors. This pair was a gift, so it's a little bit special to me, and I only use it for fabric. Pinking shears. Sometimes you'll cut around the edge of a seam, maybe if you're doing something round or whatever the pattern calls for. Pinking shears. That's my little bud. I just keep one pair of these next to each sewing machine. I do have 2 sewing machines right now, and it's just handy to cut thread and whatever you need. So those are the scissors. The weight I always have on my cutting board, because sometimes you'll need to put it at the end of the ruler to hold the end down so it doesn't shift when you're cutting your fabric. I always keep a notebook on hand. I write my patterns as I'm thinking of them and writing them down. So I always have a notebook in my sewing room. Masking tape, you never know when you're going to need it. It's very handy. I use it for making circles on wallets. I use it to tape fabric. I use it to tape on my sewing machine to make sure I have a straight line. Post-its. I use these mostly when I'm quilting. If I've got stack A and B and C and D, just for my brain and the way I am, I line them up so that way I don't get confused. Thread, you can see I have an abundance of thread. You do not need this much thread. I do some embroidery as well. And I did get all of this from threadart.com, which I find is a great place to get thread from. I haven't purchased thread since 2021 and you can probably see why. But have lots of white and beige and black thread on hand and lots of bobbin thread. Of course, we need an ironing board and an iron. I've been loving this Panasonic cordless iron. It's just amazing to not be tied down by a cord. So I highly recommend this. I always keep a spray bottle of water on my ironing board. So of all of these items, I would have starch on hand and basting spray in case you need it. And then I do have a couple of different glues, and the best press is like a clear starch and sizing alternative. But if you had to pick just one, I'd have some starch on hand. As far as sewing machines go, if you're just starting out, I would get the best machine you could afford. So there's great Brother sewing machines and Singer sewing machines that are beginning level. I got this Juki a couple of years ago. It's a straight stitch machine. I call it my workhorse. The TL 2010Q. I absolutely love working on this machine. It's fast as lightning. Makes beautiful stitches. So this is a Husqvarna Viking Designer Brilliance 80. I got it, I believe, in 2019. So it does embroidery. It has an embroidery hoop that came with it. It does all kinds of fancy stitching, zigzag stitching, stuff like that. So this one does more than the straight stitch, but I use the straight stitch more because I do more things with a straight stitch. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please drop a comment and tell me what you can't live without in your sewing room.